Mirela, we have to explain to some of our audience, of course, what is the fuel cells and hydrogen joint undertaking. It's a public-private partnership, so there are different parts, members of it. Please tell me, who are partners?
I'm so happy to be here, and it's, on the other hand, very hard to follow after such an interesting discussion on the 40 gigawatt alliance. And I'll come to that in a moment. I think that would not happen without the fuel cell and hydrogen joint undertaking and the results that we got in our projects. Briefly, the fuel cell and hydrogen joint undertaking, it's indeed a public-private partnership between the European Union, represented by the European Commission, and on the other hand, the industry. Hydrogen Europe is the association of more than 130 industry members. But also Hydrogen Europe Research has a seat in our governing board, which represents more than 60 academia and research organizations in Europe. So, very easy.
It's pretty diverse, isn't it? So you have
Indeed,
science,
indeed.
you have industry, you have government with the European Commission. So the hydrogen fuel cell joint undertaking is something like, governance for new technologies, huh?
In fact, I have to say, European Commission, EU, the European Union, has supported this fuel cell and hydrogen activities for a long time already. I was there for some time also. And I think the working in a partnership with industry is the best way to push these technologies to the market.
And at the same time doing science to improve and get the political support.
It gets exactly around the table, the actors that you need to somehow focus or direct the support for the research that it's needed for the technology to get to the market. And having the industry sitting with the government and doing the two-ways approach, the bottom-up from the industry and the top-down from the policy side, from the government, gives exactly the focus that is necessary for focusing this.
And what we've just heard in this discussion about the 40 gigawatt electrolyzer program, which is very inspiring, we need hydrogen, well, you could really say as an intermediate for all the different sectors of industry. And it's so easy to produce with an electrolyzer.
Indeed, again, I'm representing an organization which looks from both sides. From the political message that indeed we need the hydrogen. I think it's one of the main technology, if it's not the technology to decarbonize really Europe by 2050. And that it's coming more and more clear in all the studies and the messages from the European Commission. But also with the support we are having with our 244 projects we have put in place by now, we show in the field that it's possible. So we are not just dreamers anymore. So we are showing that this is possible and we are on the right path to do that.
And you're on the way to find business models for that technology. That's the important part. We are off the phase of demonstration and we are now really going into business. And it's almost there, you could say. Oh, is it there already?
It is already there. And in fact, my predecessors on the stage mentioned the projects that they are involved, they are projects supported by us. In fact, the 10 megawatt electrolyzer that was mentioned by ITM is in a refinery, in a Shell refinery in Germany. It's a project that we support. The business model works, indeed, and that gives also to ITM Power and to Shell confidence that this is one of the sectors where indeed the business works. We have other business models like the one for the 6 megawatts for Voestalpine. That was also mentioned. This is another project that we support. So another business model that works. And we have the business models of producing electricity for transportation. In fact, we had about 3 years ago, a study conducted which looked at all the businesses on a short term. And it concluded that the business model is there and it works already.
I would like to invite you, if you have a question to Mirela, just raise your hand. I'll come with the microphone right to you. You can put your question right away. If not, I think we really should open the stage for people who does not know so much about hydrogen. Why is it so important, and how could we integrate different sectors? How does that work? So we started with hydrogen. Hydrogen is made by electrolyzers. Green hydrogen especially is made by electrolyzers. Then we have the hydrogen. We have to store it. Where can we store it?
In fact, if I have to look back myself to just by looking at the portfolio of projects we supported, we started about 10 years ago with electrolysis at very small scale, in fact, and by producing hydrogen for the fuel cells. For the fuel cell, mainly for the transportation, with a bit for heating and cooling. But I could say that maybe from 3-4 years ago, some big industries, which I just mentioned, refineries, steel industries, they started to look at hydrogen and one of the solutions for greening their processes.
Because they need a lot of reduction material in the steelmaking process, for instance, and they could use green hydrogen.
Exactly. So that's one of the, and we see more and more industries. No, I'm mentioning refinery and steel, which is obvious. And as again, we are demonstrating the business model there.
Also, the chemical industry needs hydrogen.
We see the fertilizer industry looking at us. We see now, we just heard about the gas infrastructure looking at greening the infrastructure of the gas, of the natural gas, by injecting hydrogen into the pipes. So we see all the sectors, because we talk about sectoral integration, we see all the sectors looking at hydrogen as the solution for greening.
This is something Jorge Chatzimarkakis just has mentioned. He's been to Bucharest even this morning, and it just arrived here. There was a meeting of European ministers for the greening gas infrastructure. That's quite interesting, to put regulations about the gas infrastructure on the same level.
Yes, as you know, at European level, every 6 months we have another presidency. And the previous one was in Austria. And that's when it happened, the Linz initiative. In September last year, the energy ministers, and in fact Austria, had it as a priority on their presidency to look at green hydrogen. And in fact, it was one of the success of the Austrian presidency to get hydrogen into the RED, the Renewable Directive revision, by December. Now, Romanian presidency, the next 6 months, they also look at their priorities, and as a presidency, they said, okay, it's time now, as we are working, energy ministers are working on the different legislation in the energy, they said now we are working on the gas package. What about hydrogen?
This is highly important.
That's what they discussed, in fact, yesterday, and they signed, I understood, I haven't seen it yet, okay. But I understood they signed a declaration to green the gas infrastructure in Europe, mainly through hydrogen, but also probably biomethane or synthetic methane.
Your boss, Bart Bieboek, was there. He will tell you as soon as
exactly.
he arrives here. And this is highly interesting because, you know, you can produce the green hydrogen and transport it via gas pipelines, which is quite easy. But on the other hand, if you put into the gas pipeline, it's like a downgrading, isn't it? You can't use it as hydrogen anymore. It's then part of the natural gas.
I would not see that part of the whole story, that you downgrade the green hydrogen. I would see more as a solution to not to switch off the renewables that now are currently switched off. We have a lot of potential for wind, for example, or even for solar in the south, for wind mainly in the north. And we have installed a lot of capacity of renewables in some parts of Europe. And we are continuing to install, which I think it's also important. We have to continue to install renewables. We have a great potential in Europe. And because we know the renewables are intermittent, when we have a peak of renewables, we should be able to have a capacity to get that curtailed electricity and put it in another form and transport it through the natural gas grid. I think this is a value and I will not see it as downgrading the hydrogen, but mainly bringing more energy from renewables to the place where you need it.
Maybe we can see the parallel to the energy grid, which started with renewables, and many people were buying renewable current, by contract. And they said, well, we only want green current. We buy that from our providers. And now it's possible to buy green gas from virtually green gas. Of course, the gas that's arriving is another one, but virtually green gas. And that could help hydrogen very much. A really good business case.
Indeed, in fact, we thought about that. We thought about that, and following the path of the green electricity certificates and guarantees of origin, now with the renewable directive, revised renewable directive, we, and Yorgo has mentioned before, the industry as a group has managed to introduce into the package the requirement also to recognize the guarantees of origin for green gases, including hydrogen. So, and us, the joint undertaking, working together with the government, of course, with the European Commission arm, the side of the government, we are working in defining first a guarantee of origin with the aim to put in place a certification mechanism for green and low carbon hydrogen. So we have, I think, now the legislation in place. With the gas package, probably that will re-endorse and reinforce this, and we are on the right track to do that. We just finished our Certify, it's called, initiative. It just finished the end of March. By the way, not to forget, we have a booth together there with our colleagues in NOW, and we have a nice leaflet about Certify for those who would like to know more. And yes, we're working with the issuing bodies right now.
I have a gas heater at home, so I certainly will get a contract where I have certified hydrogen at home. So it would feel much better to have heating with hydrogen. Are there any questions? I would like to look in the round. Are there any questions? Yes, there's one. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Peter Sofef. I'm a researcher from University of Denmark. And the way I see the transition to hydrogen, we have a lot of focus on producing hydrogen and consuming. And then what you just mentioned, that now we're starting to focus on the infrastructure and how to utilize the existing gas infrastructure. And my question is, what do you think are the bottlenecks, and how we overcome those bottlenecks so we can utilize or maybe start building infrastructure that is future-proof or modular? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Of course, we thought about that. I don't have time to talk about everything we've done. But we already, currently we have a call open for proposals, for ideas, for applications. And in this call, we already have 3 different topics that we call applications for in blending hydrogen into the natural gas grid. One of the topics is already looking at the influence that doing that will have on the appliances, different type of appliances. We would like to look at the pre-normative research that is necessary, getting into the standards, existing standards, new standards, modifying the standards for that. So that would be one. But we also look at 2 different business models, if you want, in doing that. One is injecting hydrogen into a pipe next to a refueling station. So you increase or you deal with underutilization of a refueling station, electrolyzer next to a refueling station. And the third one is injecting hydrogen into the transmission grids, so high pressure natural gas grids. So we are looking already at the aspects. Of course, we are trying to see all the time what are the aspects, the challenges, the bottlenecks, like you mentioned. And for sure, next year we will continue in looking at this.
Mirela, it was a pleasure talking to you. Unfortunately, we ran out of time already. But whoever wants to talk to you will find you over there at the stand of NOW. You will be there for the rest of the week, hopefully, Mirela, to talk to you. Please visit the booth of the Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Joint Undertaking at B59. Thank you.
Thank you, Ulrich. My pleasure.
It was a pleasure, indeed.
Thank you.